Hi, welcome to Infodumpies. My name's Brianne. My pronouns are she, her. I'm autistic. I have ADHD. And I ate this very weird fruit. And my new superpower is that my blood is chunky.
Hi, I'm Violet. My pronouns are she, her. I have ADHD. And I don't just have one piece. I have like four of them bitches. I got all of them. I don't know how many there are, but I'm going to get them.
And our guest today is Brent. Brent's pronouns are he, him. He has ADHD. And he's actually reporting to us from a pirate ship.
Oh, cool.
Hi,
It
Brent.
must be a lot to maintain.
Hey, Brianne. Hey, Violet. How's it going?
Going good.
So today, Brent is going to tell us about One Piece and why One Piece is important to him. Before we begin, I have never seen an episode of One Piece. I have never read the manga. Everything I know is either from working at the comic book store where I met Brent. I met Brent at the comic book store years ago.
Like a decade ago.
Yeah.
Feels like.
No, quite
Yeah.
literally, I believe a decade ago. I started working there in 2012, so over a decade ago.
Well, it's weird for me to admit that I've been shopping there since 1994 on and off. So don't worry about it. And I didn't piece it together till like 15 years later because the store had moved. So
Yeah, so we met at the comic book store, and that's where I got most of my One Piece knowledge. Stuff James has tried to explain to me. I'm going to tell you the breadth of my knowledge about it before we begin, so then you can tell me where I had it wrong, okay? One Piece has these people who go look for fruit that gives them superpowers. They are pirates, kind of, in that they are on a ship. There is a young man in a straw hat who is named Luffy, but also Monkey. And then there is a small moose man named, it's either Tony, is it Tony Tony? It's like Tony
yeah,
Chopper,
yes.
who I recall enjoying seeing memorabilia of him. And there is a busty woman who is one of the main characters.
And then my knowledge is mainly from I worked at a game store for about 2 years, and when I did is when the One Piece, the newest card game, came out. So I know that the main character is Monkey D. Luffy. There is boats, there is gold, there is old sweaty men, there is a little man, Tony Chopper. There's a little guy, and I know that there's fruit, and the fruit make your body weird. And I know that the old sweaty men are on the most expensive cards when their face is really zoomed in, and it's called a parallel foil. That's what I know.
Oh, I wonder which ones are supposed to be the sweaty ones.
God, I wish I could tell
Are
you.
they sweat in the illustration? Are they sweating?
Oh yes, yeah. So specifically, the most expensive One Piece cards when I was working at the store were the ones where it was a zoomed in, still from the manga of an old sweaty man of some kind, specifically sweaty.
Oh man, I can only think of one older character, one older gentleman who I would say is sweating.
I think
it's because he's eating food that makes him go to the bathroom.
I think there's one guy named Oda who was really popular.
Oda's the writer.
Oda's the writer?
Mm-hmm.
Ichiro Oda, right? I remember that. I believe.
I think that's about how. I mean, I'm not entirely sure how to pronounce the first name, to be honest, and I think I would butcher it. But that is what it looks like.
Okay.
To me, but it's probably more like Ikira or something. Oda, I don't know.
I recall from putting many of those books on shelves.
Oh, and I know one more thing about One Piece is that there's a pretty character named Yamato who has a big old baseball bat with studs on it, and she's cool. And I'm not entirely sure of their pronouns, but I think they are canonically trans in some fashion.
They are not.
Oh.
Yeah, that's a whole thing. You can talk about that now. I don't.
I don't know. That was just another thing I remember.
So, that's a whole big topic in the fan community, and there were two born as male characters who dressed as women, and it was given the brothers originally. And then there's Yamato, who is born as a woman but refers to herself as a man. And when the official trading card deck in Japan, which is like it's canon essentially, from what I understand, because the writer will fill in all the details.
Hmm.
Yamato is a woman. One of the brothers is trans, and the other one is either just cross-dressing or undercover. I can't recall. Like, this is something that divided the fan community a lot, because Yamato refers to herself as a male character who is dead, and she's kind of taking on his persona, and her father will sarcastically and bitterly refer to her as his son, and a lot of other characters will refer to her as him. And there is a really awkward scene in a recent episode where I think one of the brothers died, but there are people who are they're all in like hot springs together, and it's separated by gender, and it's very awkwardly handled to try to give an awkward answer to these three characters. But I don't think because there's three people and there's three different answers, I don't think that anyone in the fan community was pleased with that, because they were like, well, that person's this and that person's that, and none of those answers were correct. So
interesting.
Yeah.
Given our dearth of knowledge about One Piece, can you describe to us the basic premise of the show?
One Piece is a story about a boy named Monkey D. Luffy, who, when the story starts, is about 17 years old, and he's setting out to become the world's greatest pirate, which in One Piece terminology is the king of the pirates. And in order to become king of the pirates, he has to find the world's greatest treasure called the One Piece. And
that's the name of the show.
Yeah. That's the one of the that and there's no indication of what the One Piece actually is. I mean, like, there are hints. There's stories been going on for 26 years. Like, people have a lot of theories. The biggest fear that fans have is that we're going to find out the One Piece is going to be like, the treasure isn't like gold, it's the friends we made along the way.
I was about to say, yeah. The two piece is gold, and it's very large. But the One Piece, that is the friends we made along the way.
It's just friendship.
The one ship you can't sink.
Yeah.
That's really good.
So the Oda, it's written by a name guy, Ikura Oda. I'm not sure. I've never been very positive on how to pronounce the first part of his name. Oda swears up and down that One Piece is not something intangible or like a message of hope and friendship. It's not the friends we made along the way. They're not going to get to the destination and find out, like, hey, but like, aren't you best friends with the guy to your right and the guy to your left? They're not. He swears up and down that's not going to happen. That being said, that is still an ongoing fear that people have, given the length and depth of the story at this point. Also, it's gonna be ruined for them.
It is wild that the show is 26 years long.
Yeah,
and that they don't know what the thing is yet.
It's gonna be a treasure chest, and you're gonna open it up, and it's gonna say, "One piece of D's nuts, LMAO, got him," and that's gonna be it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
God, I hope that's it.
It's been going for 26 years. Last time I checked in on how long both the manga and the TV show were going, it was in the 800s or something. What is it now?
Mm-hmm. I think the manga as of this week is like, I could be a digit off, but it's 1097. It might be 1098.
Wow.
And the anime is like 1070s or something.
They keep really close.
Well, and storyline, they are not. The story of the anime is about a year behind.
Really?
The anime adapts about 2/3 of a chapter per episode, and that's on average. So sometimes it's more than that. Sometimes it's maybe a little bit less than that. There's a lot of like filler or shots of people running. It's there's a lot of like you see like a big shot of a crowd and we've got to like watch the same like 30 like tiny illustrations of a person like fill up this space in the screen, and it's maybe 30 people, but it's really now it's like a 230, but it's the same
Same
30 people
repeated.
spread out. Yeah, so there's a lot of tricks they do to spread it out. It's about a year behind. What they'll end up doing after every in the middle of an arc and after an arc is they'll suddenly just throw in filler episodes of like a side journey. Like, oh, I mean, I know we're like going to the next island, but we just got caught up in this like it's called like Silver Mine. And it reminds me of like I think it's like Texas Pete's ride at the state or Six Flags or something. And like and that's like I don't know how many episodes, and they'll throw in these things that I think most people don't like, but a few people like some of them because some of them will have their own ongoing continuity that is sort of separate from the show. But that's how they've managed to make it seem like they are like right on the heels of catching up, but are actually nowhere close to.
Huh.
And this has
That's
been going on for
interesting.
years.
So there's two kind of timelines, and then there's like plots within plots within plots, essentially.
Yeah, so I think that like some of them are just like oh, we've run out of food in between arcs, so we have to go steal some food from a marine base or something. And that's sort of like they kind of try to weave that into the main story, but it obviously never gets referred back to in a canonical episode because it's not a canonical part of the manga. But then there's these other filler arcs that are in sort of this, and I've only watched a few episodes of them because I mean there's there's like 1,100 episodes, and
Yeah.
I just can't watch everything. From what I understand, they are in this alternate Japan, and it's like Boss Luffy and there's Boss Buggy. Buggy is like the earliest villain who's also completely worthless, but has managed to fail upwards to being a competitor to Luffy. Um, and he's an amazing character. And I don't know, it's some sort of like yakuza, like the Japanese mafia, some sort of like yakuza story. And I think like it looks like I don't know 1700s Japan. I don't know. It's and that they'll have multiple stories of the Boss Luffy storyline. They'll have multiple filler arcs of that, and so those tell an alternate story, but then like nothing ever gets referred back to. It's
That is,
purely filler.
I can't imagine. So Oda writes all of it, right?
That's what they say. Yeah, I mean, I believe that, but like
Yeah.
his work schedule is like says he works 20 hours a day, like 7 days a week, and then he takes he'll have like a break. He'll do 3 chapters. Basically the manga has enforced that he'll do because he wound up in the hospital about 10 years ago from overwork, and they were like, oh my god, this is the biggest thing we've got going, we're going to force you to take breaks.
Yeah.
So now he writes 3 chapters, take a break, 3 chapters, take a break. But like he says he works 20 hours a day, and that's just I don't know how that's humanly possible.
Yeah, and like as someone who writes something that's on a regular publishing schedule and has to have a certain amount of stuff out at a certain time because I've developed an audience who expects stuff at a certain time, I can't fucking imagine him writing like the manga that consistently and the anime and then keeping up with continuity for 26 years of content. Like,
Yeah.
I have to have a special file for writing my podcast where I'm like, no, you already prefaced that this is what the goat man who hosts the infernal orgy, his brother's name is. You've already said that, so I have to have a file, and I've been doing that for 3.5 years. I can't imagine trying to keep that straight in his shoes after that long
Yeah.
and that much content.
No.
Yeah.
So
unless he's just built different.
He built different. Cracks an egg
Yeah.
over a manga.
he's gotta be so he says that originally he envisioned One Piece as this 5-year story, and that seems to be like I don't know a ton about manga. Like I went to Japan and I had maybe read one manga at that time, and I can tell you the story how I wound up in One Piece in a bit, but so supposedly there's like a 5-year thing in manga, like, oh, we want to have like a story that we can tell within 5 years and it's complete and self-contained. And it kind of looks like in the early stories that maybe that was going to happen, but I don't know that that's even feasible because the story has obviously grown out to 26 years. He took a break, so there's things that like, and this is one of the things I really do want to talk about. If it's not really, it's a whole other topic. He was dropping in hints and spoilers around like chapter, let's say 250 or something, that doesn't pay off in the manga until the 700s. And
Whoa.
it's literally,
Wow.
yeah, I mean, it's like a 10-15 year long game on some of this stuff. I don't know how you tell a story with that much deep level of foreshadowing that doesn't look like he just went back and like, oh, I can just like grab this story element here and make it fit. I mean, it really does look like it's
Yeah.
purposeful. And I know that he recently took 1 or 2 month long breaks. So one of them was just got like, he had astigmatism and got his eyes fixed and got LASIK or something. And so he took a break to recover from that. Everyone was freaked out about his health. Like, oh my God, he's back in the hospital. What's going on? We didn't know about this. And he's,
With that work
don't worry,
schedule,
guys.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's like, don't worry, guys. I'm just taking, I just got my eyes worked on. I just can't draw while my eyes are recovering. And the other one was that he finished the most recent arc, and the arc lasted, and I'm not kidding, 4 years at least. And
God.
after that arc was over, it's the Wano arc. And he had been, oh my gosh, he had been leading up to the Wano arc for 10, 15 years of like
My
foreshadowing that it's gonna that we're gonna get there. And so once Wano's over, and to be honest, like because of how the story had been progressing, like it's not really clear where they go after Wano, because they had just Wano was like there's other stuff out there, but there was always like we're going to Wano. That's the island we're going to go to. Once Wano was done, he took another month-long break because he's like, okay, now that Wano's over, we're in the final arc or the final saga, which who knows how many years
My
that'll
God.
take. And he took a month off because he had to get like essentially like the story Bible correct.
Mhm.
Like he had to figure out, go back and look at what he's done previously and what he wants to do and make sure that everything lines up and fix stuff. And I think within like once he comes back and a few chapters in, people are like, no, he made a mistake. And he's like, like I think he even publicly fessed up to it. I can't remember for sure. But like something was contradictory. I don't know how you keep that up. It's
No.
Yeah. So pre-pandemic, I was running like professional games of Dungeons and Dragons, and my longest running campaign, which is essentially my longest like continuous story that I've ever written, was about 2.5 years long. That felt like a lot. That felt like a massive undertaking, and like I made mistakes a year into that still, and people would point it out, and then I would have to make that work. But like I could only keep that up for so long, and about it like that last half year, about halfway into that half, that's when it really started to fall apart because like my main character just like or the main villain of the story through a series of bad rolls just got absolutely moitered and he's like dead. And I'm like, okay, well, what do I do now? And does it seem like it's kind of getting to that point, or is it do you think he's got
no.
something?
I
I I think the series, and this is the refrain I've heard across social media since I discovered the show. One Piece actually manages to not just maintain quality, but overall improve it with time. Like there's arcs that maybe people are like, yeah, it wasn't too crazy about this, but no. I'll end up seeing some people who are like, yeah, I don't think the show's been that great since the time skip, which was maybe like 10, 15 years ago. But like most people I hear say they don't understand how not only can One Piece just keep going, but that it's still interesting to them and they're still finding new things. It's still engaging. So thankfully it hasn't fallen apart.
So one thing I'm thinking that Oda probably has done. So for my podcast, I had a story arc in mind. I had originally planned it as a comic, so I had separated things sort of
Mhm.
with that format in mind. But when I changed it to an audio format, I had an idea of about how many seasons and what I needed to happen. And there were certain scenes I wrote, like the season finale for last season, which came out in July. I had written that early 2020, and that didn't come out till 2023 because I already knew, like, that's how that part's going to happen. This is an important thing. So, like, the show's going to have its final season, and I'm doing a spinoff. I have the pilot for the spinoff written already. And most of the final episode. I already know those things that are going to happen, and I've had most of the final episode figured out for a while. So I kind of wonder if Oda had certain things he knew wanted to happen. The amount of time it would take in between those was a little more flexible. Like, he kind of fills in the blanks as he goes. But I wonder if, since he had the skeleton and the bones of an outline of something that could keep going, you know what I mean? Like, I think he has a goal in mind.
Yeah.
I think he had that in mind a long time ago. So when he's foreshadowing things, I think it might have been there at concept, like when it came to him.
No, okay. I think that is overall true. Because like there will be really early chapters where he's talking about like how many members he wants to join his pirate. How many members Luffy wants to join his crew. And he'll mention the different positions. Oh, I need a cook. I need a musician. He picks up a cook fairly quickly. It's one of like, I think it's like the 5th of the core 5 characters who get picked up. It's weird how like, I think that a lot of fans kind of, and I do too, even though in the early parts of One Piece, they're kind of picking up characters consistently. Like, we go to this island. Okay, now we found another crewmate. We go to this island, we found another crewmate. But for a lot of people, it seems to be like, God, I hope I got 5. Luffy, Nami, Zoro, Usopp, and Sanji. And Sanji's a cook. And then, like, I don't know how many hundreds of chapters later, they pick up 2 more people along the way. But then they pick up a musician. And there's still like an open 1 or 2 open slots on the crew. And so people are like, oh my God, like what role is he going to fill? Like, what is he going to do? But it's clear that from the start, like, some things are planned. It's just that, like, getting there is the journey, Brianne. Like, it's friendship.
Yeah, it's the one ship you can't sink. Yeah.
So,
but yeah, I vibe with how he does that, because I will have an idea that I'm like, I know this needs to make it in the show. I don't know where, but here's the idea for it. Like, we did a musical episode last season. I knew early in season 1 that I needed to have a musical episode, and some of it needed to have certain things. And I was like, okay, it fits here. I knew I wanted to have like a body swap episode or like storyline. And I figured out where that fit. And kind of the road between it, it's like, didn't expect to do all that in between. All right, cool. Hell yeah, we're still getting there. So I vibe with the idea of him having, like, I can take as long as I need to get to this point. We'll see where things go organically.
Yeah, I like that
so,
too.
Yeah. And I think that's really what he's done in some of this. There's actually a super theory, a mega theory that's out there, that this one arc that's in the earliest parts, now not earliest, but it's like the first third, ending of the first third of One Piece, like story wise, probably. And a lot of people really hate it. Like, it's called Skypeia, and since it's essentially, there's the Japanese One Piece community they're on an entirely different like drug than anyone else is on, because of what they are analyzing, because it's in its native language. But basically their theory is, and it's convincing. English speakers, not Americans, but English speakers have taken the Japanese theory and spread it out to the English speaking community. And I don't know how popular it is, but it's popular, you know. And it's the idea that the Skypeia arc is not this like filler arc that people hate, but is actually this deeper metaphor for the rest of the story that we don't even figure out for another, and again, it's like 15-20 years. They are they're in a sky island. The ship has gone up into the clouds. They find there's another race there. They're being ruled by a guy who claims to be a god, who has devil fruit powers. That's where they get their superpowers from. And he says that he's a god. And his name is, depending on where you read it, it's either Enel or Eniru. And Luffy defeats the false god. The false god's entire plan was to return back to his people on the moon. And Luffy defeats the false god, frees the people from the sky. And then there's like a cover story. So there's, even though it's collected in a thing called Shonen Jump, it's like a comic book cover. There's a cover illustration for every chapter. And there is an entire arc about Enel, after getting his ass kicked, he actually finds his way to the moon, meets the other Moonanites, essentially the moon people, and they show him all these hieroglyphics of moon culture. I don't know what else. I mean, it's all, there's not really dialogue. It's just pictures, single pictures. And people really believe that this, and based on where the story has gone, people believe that the moon is a likely destination for the One Piece. People believe that the false gods is a reference to what they call the celestial dragons. And they're more or less the rulers of the world. They're the false gods. Above the false gods, there is a person who is on what they call the empty throne, and no one else knows about it except for the 5 people that everyone thinks are ruling the world. They actually are servants of the false god that no one knows about. And there's also a lot of belief that maybe the shape of the island of Sky Island or another island in that arc is there's a hidden message in the logo of the show, and that in fact if you turn the straw hat around, it looks like a spaceship, so that it's like going to the moon. They think that there's a hidden message in the island shape, that it's like that's connected to where the One Piece is. It's really hard for me to even deny the possibility that he has had every single major story beat planned from the beginning. Like the minor stuff, I don't know. It's hard for me to deny that he hasn't had a lot up his sleeve. When, I mean, there's a cover arc of a guy calling himself, in an issue where a guy calls himself Mr. Prince, like Sanji calls himself Mr. Prince. And I think that in a cover illustration, he's carrying a briefcase with all these papers sticking out of it, and it's marked secrets. And you find out like 10, 15 years later that he's actually a prince. And no one picked up on that. No one was like, oh yeah, maybe Sanji's really a prince. It's stuff that's hidden in plain sight.
Huh. So yeah, it would make sense. It would make sense that people have like their like bulletin board with a bunch of pins and yarn being like, you don't understand. Like
maybe it's really, aliens.
But like it really lends itself to that with where it goes.
It really does.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I've got a friend who's watching it for the first time, and he's about maybe 200-300 chapters behind where the manga and anime are right now. And there's so much that he goes through and finds where I just want to be like, oh yeah, but like think about it in terms of this. Like, I'm not going to tell you what the answer is, but like, what if he's really a prince? You know, I'm kind of
It's really hard when someone who's like someone you care about is watching media you care about, and you're like, do you pay attention to that? Not gonna say why. Just remember that for later.
Spoilers, but that is important.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like,
yeah,
it also seems like it's one of those things where it's like the best watch would be the second time around, or the best read would be the second time around, but also I don't know how humanly feasible that is.
I go back and I'll like so when I go to sleep, I'll put on like a show when I get in bed that's like 1,000 episodes long and is something that I don't need to follow the plot, and all the characters are sort of like familiar to me. And those 2 shows are like Star Trek and Doctor Who. One Piece I've tried to add into that repertoire, and there's just, it's so big that every time I start, like I don't remember what's going on. And so like the second watch through is like an actual watch through. Like it's so easy to forget.
Yeah. With that much content too, like that's so much.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
if someone were to watch One Piece from, If you were going to tell someone, here's how I would watch One Piece if I could start over, how would they go about that?
So here's what I actually did, and I probably be worth retelling how I got into how I discovered One
I was
Piece.
going to ask you because I heard the beginnings of a very funny story about it.
So, okay, what ends up happening is my wife and I go to Japan in like August or September of 2016. So we're in like the middle of the tail end of the 2016 election. Everything in America is very tense and uncomfortable, and we are displeased and wanting to check out. I had gotten some crazy idea to go to Japan, and my wife found tickets that were like half off, which was awesome because plane tickets are astronomical to go to Asia. We stay in Shinjuku, which is one of the districts in Tokyo, and I don't really know how to describe. Like, there's districts like Akihabara is the anime district and manga district. Harajuku, like the Gwen Stefani thing, is like Harajuku girls. That's the fashion. Well, I mean, that's like how I'm trying to. Yeah. It's the Gwen Stefani thing. I went through. I was a No Doubt fan a long time ago, and I've recently gone through a week or two long No Doubt Gwen Stefani music video binge, and now it's kind of out of my system for another 5-10 years.
When the planets align and they spell BANANAS, Brent will go through.
So yes, Harajuku is the fashion district. We're staying in Shinjuku, which is just fun. There's like arcades everywhere. We're staying in like it's called like a business hotel, which is sort of like their version of like an Econo Lodge or a La Quinta. Across the street from us are a bunch of arcades, and like in arcades in America, they'll have this thing called Mr. Claw, which if you don't know what that is, Mr. Claw is there's a big glass cube, and there are all these like stuffed toys down at the bottom, like in a big like sea of fur, and this like claw, you control this like barely operable metallic claw, and it comes down and it will maybe graze the toy and then not pick it up. My wife is actually good at that and can actually get stuff from Mr. Claw pretty regularly. I don't know how, but the toys in America are like maybe they're like a quarter. They cost a quarter, and you put in a few dollars trying to get the claw to the right place, and you're gonna get that bear. You're gonna get that bear, damn it. In Japan, it's more like $40 action figures are the prizes of Mr. Claw. And so I went to Japan. I had read one manga. It was I've been reading Attack on Titan, Shinjeki no Kyojin, and that was like my starter. That was my starter. That Netflix. It had hit Netflix when I was in grad school, and I was at home, coming home from like working out at the gym, and just popping on stuff on Netflix in the afternoon. And this is right around the time that Netflix introduced the hey, do you want to watch this feature? One of them was Attack on Titan, and I kept being like, that looks weird. I don't want to watch that. And eventually I gave in, and it was just mind blowing. And just like One Piece, it ended up having a major effect on my views on a lot of things. But we went to Japan based on just being into Attack on Titan and wanting to go to Japan. And we're in Shinjuku, we're in the arcade, and I'm just staring at all of the action figures from manga and anime that I don't recognize, and I'm like, oh hey, it's Levi, it's Eren from Attack on Titan. And then I start seeing like every arcade I go to, there are dozens of One Piece figures and every Mr. Claw, and I just I'm staring at them. I don't know. I've heard of One Piece. I don't know anything about it, and I'm trying to maybe come up with a plot or a story idea based on what the action figures look like, and I'm just hitting a wall because they're always in different outfits. There's sort of like a piratey logo, but like they're all dressed like they're going to like a gay soiree. Like I don't really, because the outfits will change in different arcs. And then it's like a marketing mass media sensation, and so they'll put them in different outfits, or sometimes for a movie they'll have a Japanese clothing store or a brand design the outfits for the movie. And so like one movie, it's the store Uniqlo, which is where I got this shirt. Actually,
Cool.
Uniqlo. It's like
Huh.
the Japanese Gap, essentially. And I found this shirt in Canada because there aren't very many Uniqlos in America, to my knowledge. So while I'm staring at these action figures and I'm going from arcade to arcade, one character with orange hair, this woman, she starts to catch my eye, I guess, because in I I guess you can't really like tell the story without just admitting that I like boobs, you know?
Hey,
And
everyone on this call likes boobs. This is a
Yeah.
safe
yeah,
space.
And
yeah,
and everyone I've
yeah.
ever met that's a One Piece fan likes boobs, so I think there's a correlation there.
There I think it's an integral part of the plot at this point. But I noticed that her boobs go from, let's just say, a respectable C on like, a teeny tiny body, a respectable full C, and all of a sudden like I go to the next arcade and they're like double D's maybe, and I go to the next arcade and we're in like F cup situations.
Sounds about right from
And
what
I
I know.
yeah, and I'm really just like, what is this horny shit? Like I I I I bring my wife over. I'm like, hey, like I've been looking at all this One Piece stuff. I don't know what this is, but like her boobs keep getting bigger everywhere we go.
I don't know what this is. I don't
And
know what it's about, but the
yeah,
boobs are getting bigger and I love it. Tell me
yeah. And
more.
so yeah, we were there for like a week and a half, and I think I found One Piece within the first couple days. And then and literally everywhere we went, every city we stayed in, because we went to like Osaka, Kyoto, Hiroshima, we'd see the big boobs somewhere. We see One Piece and the boobs.
The big
And
boobs.
yeah, and it like we come back to America and I was just like, what the hell was that? And I get laid off from my job like a week before Christmas,
Oh
which was
god.
great. And no one really hires around like, first of the year, and no one was hiring in my industry. I mean, to be completely honest, like who, he who must not be named, had just been elected, and I think that there was mass fear that the economy was going to be like utterly obliterated from day one, and I just did not see any job postings in my industry until March, and did not get hired on and start my actual job until like April or May. So I had like months of
Yeah.
unemployment and a lot of time on my hands. I started watching One Piece, and it was also running on Adult Swim or Toonami
Mhm.
at the time. They were around like chat episode like 400 maybe, but I wanted to start, and I kind of watched a few episodes, and I was like, that's interesting, that's weird. I wanted to go back to the beginning and start One Piece from episode one, and I think I got like an episode through and was like, well, this was slow, but I'm gonna keep going. Let's see what happens, because I had looked it up, and it turns out One Piece is like the world's biggest manga,
Mhm.
the world's biggest anime. Every year in the last few years, I'll see like a headline that's like, One Piece is just on the verge of outselling Harry Potter. Okay, One Piece is now on the verge of outselling Batman. And now I think that and Batman has been published for 70, 80 years. One Piece has been published for 26. I don't know if you know, but like there will be multiple Batman comics published at a time. There's only One Piece. And now the last thing I heard was One Piece is on the verge of outselling Superman, like the
Mhm.
world's biggest
Yeah.
comic book character. And I don't know if it's outsold Superman yet, but I know it's on the verge if they haven't done it yet. But I decided, and while we are in Japan, oh my gosh, there'd be like a road crew, and they'd have like the signs up that like, hey, you need to get out of this lane. And instead of it just being like a bunch of orange things like in America, it's a One Piece character.
Oh
Oh
my
my
Like
god.
god.
government, the government literally has got One Piece characters for their road construction signs, and it's apparently so big that 1 in 8 people in Japan are reading it.
Holy
Like,
shit.
and
That is,
yeah,
first off, that's brilliant to get people to look at your fucking sign to make it a popular character. Like if Super
Yeah.
Mario was at the stop sign telling me, "Whoa, don't go here," like
Don't
I'd be
go
like,
here.
"Okay, Mario, you fucking got it, bro."
Wahoo!
Yeah.
Right lane closed
Woohoo!
in quarter mile.
Yeah.
Left lane only ahead. Whoa. Like what? That's fucking brilliant.
I started watching the first episode and it was slow. And I think I watched through the first 10, maybe up to 30 episodes. And my attention span was like dropping. It is just brutal for me. But I really wanted to give it another chance. And so I just sped up to and I think originally I was watching it in English and I was just not McLovin' it. And there's nothing wrong with English cast, actually. They do a pretty good job, but Japanese voice actors are much more dramatic and when maybe like the Americans would be like, I end up fast forwarding to where the show was on Adult Swim, and which was like 400 chapters later. And I picked it up around the Thriller Bark arc. And what I discovered pretty quickly was that I don't know if you know this, Brianne. I was a theater major.
Yeah.
I don't know if you know this.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. I do not work in theater now at all, but Funimation is located here in DFW somewhere.
Mhm.
My acting program had a lot of people who would either just go do like background voice work for Funimation, or there's a couple of people who have actually become like stars in the voiceover world from my program that were there with me. And what I discovered was that I was starting an arc with one of those guys as like
Oh,
he was
cool.
introducing him, and which was, well, it's weird because then I find out there's another guy who is like one of the superstar voice actors of our time. I don't want to name drop these people, but like he's in it as not a main character, but like a main guest character, let's say. It's weird getting into something so strongly and finding out that it's like people you know from college.
Yeah.
That's wild.
Because I don't really want to geek out too much when I see them, but like, oh my God, you're part of my favorite thing. Like, thank you.
Yeah.
When I was working at Common Ground Games, one of the people there is a fan of the podcast that Brianne writes, Today's Lucky Winner.
Mhm.
And that was always interesting. Like when a new episode would come out, I'd show up to work and have this person who is my coworker be like, "Oh my gosh, the new episode was so good. Blah, 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 I really like this part where you did this line. Yeah, I liked your delivery and all this stuff." And I'm like, this is wild. This is weird. You're my coworker. Technically, you're my subordinate. And like,
Yeah.
I was cool, but
wild.
like, it was so strange. It was very surreal. So I can't even imagine kind of being on the other side of that too.
Yeah. I hung out with him at one of these guys at the New York Comic Con, and we were both staying. So I was staying when I was staying in New York. I was staying with his old roommate, who I know because he used to date my wife's ex-roommate. So we're staying there. And then the voiceover actor is also staying there. Haven't seen him in like 15 years, and we all just hang out, and I'm just like, oh my God, like One Piece, like, and I have to really like hold back,
I just imagine
because I
you
don't-
pointing and going, One Piece. That's the first thing you see.
Yeah,
said.
One Piece.
One Piece.
I also heard you in the background on Attack on Titan. Heard you in the back. You're on Dragon Ball. Way to go! Oh my God, you're in the background of original Dragon Ball too. Way to go!
I think
I just have to like.
think I've met the person you're talking about at the comic book store.
I'm almost positive
yeah,
you have, because Michael and I have talked about
I
it.
think.
And he knows him.
Yeah. But yeah,
So,
boobs got you into One Piece, which
yeah,
yeah,
which bizarrely had this downwind effect of change, like softening my personality, causing a lot of like personal growth. I think that it played a role in me changing political affiliations. I think it taught me more rounded morality than I had received. I received a pretty decent moral instructional background at my religious private school, but I felt like One Piece did a better job of showing like how to treat people and what's right and wrong. And it's weird, super weird, to be in your mid to late 30s and be like, oh my God, I just found this cartoon that has like changed my life. But that's what did it.
I think we should title
So
this episode Nami's Boobs Changed My Life.
That's
that's a plausible
yeah.
That is definitely that's a definite explanation of what happened.
Hell yeah.
I would recommend that if someone's going to start One Piece, that they really do start from an arc that is good. And usually what I tell people is start with this arc called Water 7 in this lobby. So they first go to this island called Water 7 that looks, I think it looks like Venice, like the sinking island around Italy. I think that's what yeah. And so Water 7 keeps on being hit by this like giant wave that like essentially sinks most of the island every year. So most of the people live like way up top. And one of the characters gets arrested by the treacherous world government, and they follow her off to Ennis Lobby, the government's like judicial island. It's their like torture prison, like forever imprisoned island. I use that is like core One Piece for me, and for a lot of people. But when my buddy was starting One Piece, and I was like, hey, like this is a really big investment. Like you should, if you're gonna watch this, like you should really start off with an arc that is gonna be good. He did not want to do that. He started off from the beginning.
Yeah,
And
that's
has absolutely fallen in love with it. But like there's like hundreds of episodes in between the start and Water 7. So like in my mind, you want to if you're not going to like it, if you're not going to like One Piece at its best, it's really not worth watching up to it.
yeah.
Because there's too much involved.
I also really get that though. So like it feels like the same thing kind of for when you're recommending someone get into Star Trek. So like
and you always tell them start with Enterprise, right?
Oh,
because that's the best.
No, yeah. Of course I had to get both my partners into Star Trek. So James was indoctrinated a decade ago, right?
Yeah.
But
same with my wife.
Yeah, so but I knew for him I couldn't just say start at Deep Space Nine, right? Like I couldn't just give him that instruction. The autism demanded he start from the original series, and I said, hey, there are a handful of really groundbreaking episodes here, and then the rest are crystalline entities and space lasagna and evil computers. There's some very good stuff, but there's some very, very bad stuff too. But he made it all the way through, right? But when I was indoctrinating Violet, I was like, I think you would love Deep Space Nine. It's the gayest Star Trek. I will not be taking any questions. It is.
No, it is.
It is.
And I love it.
Yeah.
So starting at that story arc would be One Piece's Deep Space Nine for you.
Yeah. So I just want to say that, first of all, I cannot imagine making someone sit through the original series in order to get to Deep Space Nine.
Right.
Like that. Yeah. Oh my God. I just, there's so little of the original. No, it's because it's a different time and place, the storytelling. I just can't watch most of it.
I also think it's interesting, like the concept of a piece of media changing who you are, that we kind of, it is like, I know there is something that feels like an outlier of, oh, it changed me as an adult. Yeah. And I don't think it should be. I think it speaks to you that you were willing to take on this new information and consider a new perspective at this age too. You know what I mean? Because yeah, there's media that's been really formative for me. Like I do not think I would have deconstructed from fundamentalism and kind of deprogrammed from the high control group up.
Oh, I forgot about that.
Yeah, I would not have deprogrammed from being part of a high control group if it weren't for Star Trek. Like I fully.
Yeah.
And even that felt late, being in my early 20s, like late teens, early 20s.
There's about a 2 or 3 year period where I, let's just say, changed my mind about a number of things.
Yeah.
And came to a better understanding of myself. And all of it, 3/4 of it was driven by media, and 1/4 of it was driven by he who must not be named becoming a supreme executive.
But I
essentially.
think that's interesting, and like there's a hopefulness that when you approach a new piece of media, like this could really change my perspective on things, and it doesn't have to be something that
Mm-hmm.
you would even imagine could do that. Because I don't think you went
Yeah.
into One Piece going, hope these tits change my worldviews. Like, that was
Nope.
not what you're expecting at all,
Right.
right?
Not at all. No, in fact, I was more just like kind of mentally cataloging the way that the tits change size, shape, and outfit throughout the
Yeah.
story. And then I was like, wait, boobs were the treasure we made along the way? I didn't know.
It's
Um,
edutainment.
yeah.
Also a good episode title. Boobs were the friends we made along the way.
Yeah. I mean, it's essentially, it's sort of like Schoolhouse Rock, but with like cup sizes, I guess.
It's like have you seen that TikTok where it's like you're trying to keep the attention of your partner with ADHD, and it's got the person going, okay, listen to me, oh no, jingle, 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 and shakes the boobs. Go, see, pay attention, hey, pay attention.
Well, that's Markiplier,
Jingle,
by the
jingle,
way.
jingle.
I haven't.
Yeah, it's got the
I haven't.
yeah, and it's just shaking the boobs to get someone's attention with ADHD back on you, like, hey. Yeah, that's what it did. Thank you, Brent. I am actually inspired to go look at some of the manga now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna go.
Some specific images of someone.
No.
Yeah.
Nami's boobs. This isn't Google.
There's like
Google.com/search/Nami's boobs /image size large.
there's it's not the most recent arc, but it's like maybe an arc before that, and there's a shot where Luffy and Nami get imprisoned and put into a book, which is kind of a weird thing.
As you do.
Yeah, they're in like a book / like prison cell.
Book prison, yeah, classic book prison.
And they're like tied up with their arms, like bondage style.
Oh.
Like, their arms are like up, like pinned behind them. And Nami's like boobs have apparently grown another cup size in the last like week, because that's actually how long One Piece story wise is going on. People have asked like Oda, like the writer, like, why are Nami's boobs? Why does she just keep getting bigger? And the answer is always like, well, it's because time has passed. Well, if you actually look at how much time passes canonically in the series, I think that before the time skip, it might be 6 months. Then there's a 2-year, and during that time, and again, this is humanly possible, but not statistically likely. She goes from like a C cup up to this like tasteful F. 2-year gap, giant boobs ahoy, and then like and then in the past the time skip, I it's maybe the total of a couple of months at this point, but I mean she has just continued. The embiggening has continued, and like it's not like it's not normal for this kind of puberty development to be happening that rapidly when someone is 19, let's say, as opposed to maybe like 15. Or
yeah, and also like boobs don't just keep growing and growing and growing.
There's no weight gain either. It's not like she's like getting like thicker. No, it's more like she's just getting like skinnier and getting bigger boobs. She's like pinned, and of course like part of her shirt is ripped, and I was like going through,
of course,
YouTube videos trying to prep for this, and I think it was like Luffy is imprisoned, and I don't think it even occurred to me until I started watching it. I was like, oh wait, I think we're gonna see Nami's boobs in this one again, and she's like tied up with her arms behind her back, and yeah, boobs ahoy, and it's just
boobs ahoy.
It's an Oda thing. He actually met his wife who was dressing like Nami at a convention. And so I don't know if that's supposed to be some sort of like subtle message to his wife, like, hey, you need to get surgery. Or if it's like something she's doing, or if he's just like a perv or what. Like, I don't know.
It sounds like he's just a boob man.
Yeah. That
he just loves his boobies.
That sounds about right. I think he likes long legs and big boobs. Because that's women are either these sort of grotesque beasts, or they are these hypersexualized goddesses, like every single one
that
of them.
That is the one thing that has driven me away from One Piece personally. I tried to watch it some, but I kept seeing there's only 3 genders. There's man, woman, and ugly woman. and that was the vibe. And I know I've been told that is not the case throughout the entirety of the show, but there are just some like juxtapositions that are rough.
I think that the genders are that there is an infinite variety of men, and then there's two types of women. And part of that is that he's making a story for, and it's ostensibly for teenage boys. But if you're a teenage boy when you started it, then you are. So if you're 13 and it's 27 years old, then you are 40 now. So it's not really for teenagers. It's kind of for grown-ups at this point.
Yeah. When it was a Shonen Jump, that kind of infinite kinds of men, only a few kinds of women, kind of makes
it made sense culturally
sense in terms of like trying to appeal.
It's still messed up, but it makes sense culturally. Yes,
it's still messed up. Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, I think,
but I can understand why that would be that way.
I think that I think I would agree that it is messed up, and it does kind of, I mean, not that women don't have multiple personalities, or different personalities, I should say. Not that women don't have different personalities or aren't different yeah, they're not all like living a dissociative identity disorder. They have different personalities. They are different, fully fledged people. They are not at all, given the like variety of, I guess, existence that the male characters have. And part of that is just that there's more men. Part of that's just that there's more men. But the women that are on there are prominent main characters. Yamato, we're talking about Nami. There's another girl on the crew called Robin. And they're all individual, fully formed characters, but they all are tall, long legs, big chest. Like that is a really common criticism, and I don't think it's wrong. But there's a lot of great story if you can look past the kind of like really, it is really soft misogyny, because it's not like implying women are incapable of handling their lives. That is actually not at all the message of this. And there's plenty of strong female characters and role models, but like physically almost everyone falls into one or two types.
Yeah.
So and like as a tall lady with decent boobs, like, I feel like I should be able to find some sort of like I relate to this character.
Yeah.
But it's tough because I'm not skinny necessarily, which is also like the other thing.
So basically everyone go watch
there's one
the
very
Barbie
particular
movie.
Body style.
And basically the message of the Barbie movie is this. But I also I think the thing that's important about media we like is also being able to criticize the things that are not great, yet it still doesn't mean you can't consume it, as long as you realize that it has some shortcomings and you recognize what they are. Thank you so much for teaching us about One Piece.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah.
Hi, you've reached the housekeeping section, and it might be the housekeeping section of today's Lucky Winner, and it might be the housekeeping section of Infodumpies, because I am recording a housekeeping section far in advance because we are going to be moving, and I want to be able to have all of these episodes still coming out while we're moving, but I also do need to pack up things in my recording center station in my room, and I don't want to record bad audio for y'all, so this housekeeping section is going to be the same for probably a couple of months. I usually like to wait to record these until closer to the episode because I want our Patreon shout-out people to be up-to-date and accurate. But I think y'all understand that you'll get more episodes this way, and we don't have to pause anything to make you wait longer. And as soon as I'm able to record these closer to the date, I'm going to start doing that again. But in the meantime, here's the housekeeping section for a show. So if you like the episode of whatever show you're listening to at the moment, check out the episode details to find everyone's social media handles. You can find Mixnomer on Instagram at the handle Mixnomer Productions. If you're listening to today's Lucky Winner, all of the cast have their social media handles in the episode details, so you can see what we're doing on the interwebs. And if you want to support us, the best way you can do that is by sharing about the show. We don't pay for ads, and we don't take paid ads. So you sharing the show is the way we grow. Like, word of mouth is the way we grow any of our shows. So if you want to tell someone in your Discord server, in your subreddit, in the grocery store, I don't know, anywhere, you tell someone about it. It helps us out a lot. If you are in a place to help us monetarily, you can find a link to our Patreon for Mixnomer in the show details. So when you become a Patreon subscriber, you are subscribing to get content for any and all shows we make in perpetuity, and you get to support everything we do. It gets split among our cast members because we do profit sharing, and we try to make sure that everyone essentially gets the same hourly rate for their work. So when you become a Patreon supporter, starting at the $1 level, you can get access to our Discord server, where we do things like streams where we play Jackbox games, streams where you watch me and Violet play a video game together. I do body doubling. I started doing like a little Stitch and Bitch hour where we do different fiber arts and we just chat. It's like a virtual knitting circle. It's very fun. But when you do that, it's just at the $1 level. You get access to all of that. And then at higher levels, you get access to things like music from today's Lucky Winner and live recordings of our Today's Lucky Winner episodes and all of the notes from me and Violet and our guests that they make for Infodumpies episodes that have a bunch of links so you can go learn more about a subject that you heard on an episode of Infodumpies. There's lots of cool stuff, and when you support us on Patreon at certain levels, you can also get a cool shout out, like our friends Randy Lovings, Rachel Rachelson, Sewing Seraph, B. Trossler, Smriti Singh, Helen Clifford, M. Mosen, Lucy, and Nicole Valdivieso. And if you haven't yet, it would be really helpful for us if you left a rating and a nice review to let people know that you liked our shows. It helps us get higher in recommendations and on different charts and get recommended to more people. Subscribing also does that, and it costs you nothing, and that helps us out a lot. So if you would like to support us in another way, that's another way you can help us out. But yeah, hopefully I will be having my recording set up at our new house when we get moved to, we're moving from Texas to Minneapolis, so that's going to be a big change. But once we get settled in Minneapolis and I have my recording station set up, these housekeeping sections will be bespoke per episode of show again, I promise. I feel bad cutting corners, and I feel bad that there's some people who might join our Patreon between now and then who might not get their shout out immediately, but again, I would rather get you shows in a timely manner than worry about that too much. I'm trying to not let my perfectionism take over. But that's all I got for you, little buddies. God, if you listen to Infodumpies and you don't listen to Today's Lucky Winner, calling you little buddies sounds condescending. But I promise it's not. But that's all I got for you now, little buddies. Until next time, try not to die. And if you're an Infodumpies listener and you don't listen to Today's Lucky Winner, my ending is... That's my ending. Okay, sorry.